has the London Metropolitan Police been able to harness the power of social media as of late to help with recruitment from the ground all the way up to aviation?
I think it's the main thrust of the advertising in London at the moment is around the fact that you can come into policing and be yourself and represent your community and your beliefs within policing. I think it's that London's a very, very diverse community. So it's, you can walk down the street in London, there's practically every language spoken, every nationality you'll come across, and they're all living side by side in this wonderful city. And the police service needs to reflect that. And I think the Met's trying very hard to recruit from the community police officers to police their community. That we have a thing in the UK of, and I'm sure it's the same worldwide in law enforcement, but we police by consent. So we need the public to consent to us being their police officers. We're an unarmed force in the UK. So, I never carried a weapon in my 30-year career. We have firearms officers on the street every day, and there's a significant number of them that are rapidly available if you need them. But it's not the norm. Your average police officer in London is still, in 2022, unarmed. And that's how it's always been here. The prevalence of firearms in the UK is thankfully very, very low. We're not a firearms-driven society. There's just isn't that culture here. It's the exception rather than the rule. We do have some issues with knife crime, and I suppose when you can't access weapons, your next weapon of choice might be a bladed article, and that's a challenge for policing. It's a challenge for our youngsters and our young communities. We're still losing too many young men and women, predominantly men, to stabbings and knife-related crime, which is something the police are constantly trying to address. But I think social media is important. The younger generations that are going to come through and be police officers, they're on Twitter, they're on Snapchat, they're on Instagram, they're on all of these social media platforms, and small, very carefully focused bits of content can help to prick someone's interest in the same way that TV program captured my interest back in 1986, 87, when I was thinking, what can I do with myself? And I think aviation's no different. In our social media, we tried on the air support unit to capture every media opportunity we could where it was appropriate. And, we let the cameras in. We did 2 fly on the wall documentaries. They weren't easy. There was a lot of really nervous people who felt that they were going to be filmed saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. But actually, when the end product came out, everyone was so proud of it, and it really shone a light on what we do, and it improved our internal recruitment, because you can't come straight into air support in the UK. You have to be a constable first, out on patrol, and then there's no time served. You could come after 2 years service, but it's not a direct access route.
Yeah, I feel like the internal recruitment stuff is huge with social media. And I think most departments are missing the boat when it comes to social media and their aviation units. Jeff's experience with the Riverside PD was very unique. They allowed him to run with social media, and he drew a huge following. And I would imagine that helped the recruitment efforts from, within the internal stuff. Is that kind of your experience, Jeff?
Yeah, definitely. And I do have to give a shout out, because London Metro was actually our inspiration when it came to our first social media that we had was actually Twitter. And it was because London was an early adopter of using the Twitter to, not live broadcast what they were doing, but to, keep the community, I guess, aware of operations and why the helicopter was in certain areas and working certain, incidents and stuff like that. And so our very first social media account that we had was actually Twitter, and it was based off of what y'all were doing over there. And then, we branched off into Facebook and then Instagram and whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, we would get a lot of, cause I never advertised who I was or what I was doing. I was just, on our, Facebook page making, funny posts or, sharing pictures and videos. And what I would get a lot of is, if I was at a, some training event or somewhere away from the hangar, and somebody would come up and be like, "Hey, who's doing your guys' social media stuff? Because it's really funny," or whatever the case was. And that was always kind of fun because I didn't. Yeah. It wasn't about me. It was about our unit and the good work that we were doing because. And I've said it before, I'll always say it, is that nobody's going to tell your story better than you. And so it's really incumbent on the unit, because a lot of times before we had all the social media stuff where we could directly, put out what we were doing, is you would have to go through the PIO and they would have to put out a press release. And, and it was cumbersome. By the time the press release was hit, the local paper or whatever, it's over with. And in this day and age, people want that instant, news of, something that's happening or whatever. And so, and then a lot of it was just not really worthy of maybe a social media, or a press release from the PIO's office. It was just, hey, we were involved in this little incident over here, and this is what came of it. And, people were looking for that kind of, information. And so I think it definitely bridged, two gaps there that we were looking to fill. Is it was getting the word out, because a lot of times, even in patrol, like, if the guys didn't hear you up on an incident, it was like, well, what's the air unit doing? So they would assume that, because we had the joke, our call sign was Chair 1, and, they're always responding from, Code 7, which is, getting food, or they're sitting in their recliners at the hangar watching, Maury Povich or something like that. And that wasn't the case at all. And a lot of times we were doing things that people had no idea that we were even capable of doing, or that we were, assisting another agency with something, or, so there was a lot of stuff that we were doing that was, you would have never known about had it not been for us being able to share that side of our job. And so then, people that you wouldn't think were following the air unit, in patrol or whatever, they were the ones that were coming up and like, hey man. And then it sparked a lot of interest with, oh, hey, these guys are actually, doing something rather than just sitting around in their recliners at the hangar. And so, it definitely, helped to, spark that interest in, I think, people that maybe not necessarily would have, shown an interest in it. So I think it was. I think if you're not using social media, I think you're really missing the mark.
The key point you said there is that they have to trust the TFOs. They can give you some training, and we did a training package for the TFOs. Occasionally we fell short, we made mistakes. There's one or two occasions where a well-meaning tweet got us into trouble because it was taken the wrong way. And that's the nature of the business. But for every 1,000 tweets, if you get a couple of them that go wrong, you can always apologize and you can correct that. And it was training. They have to trust the person doing the job to tweet. And it was we had exactly the same thing. It was right. Send us the tweet to the press office. We'll make sure it's okay, and then we'll send it out. And they said, no, it's this. The public have to feel like it's that helicopter captain or that TFO that's talking to them. I've just been on this job. We would never tweet out live what we were doing. We would say, tweet. Once we got back to base, we'd say, just been in the Romford area looking for suspects for a burglary. You've got to be careful, because if you talk about, for example, looking for a suspect armed with a knife, and then you don't have a positive outcome, then the perception is that the suspect armed with the knife is still at large.
Right.
And that's worrying. So there was a very careful way that we trained our crews to just use Twitter in a proactive and kind of positive way. Yep. So we would again, it's telling the public when they get woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning by a noisy helicopter for 20 minutes, this is why we were there. We're keeping you safe. Mm-hmm. This is what came of it. And we you're treading a tightrope in terms of likely court proceedings that go on, but you're not going to go into any details. And we found that it never caused us any problems. It got nothing but praise from the public for the openness and the honesty of the crews.
The only time we ever did anything that was even remotely, during an active incident was looking for missing people, you know, because now you want the public to help, you know, you want people looking out their windows and, you know, so if it was a missing elderly person or a child or something like that, we would, you know, the TFO would get on the, you know, account and tweet it out, you know, in pretty much real time. Hey, this is what we're looking for. We're in this area looking for this person, but it was never when it was involving a crime. Like you said, it was, you know, missing people and stuff. And again, we always, I mean, I did, you know, step on my, you know what, once or twice maybe, but, you know, posting something or whatever, you know, I think it's a really unique way for us to be able to interact with the public in an almost real time environment. And like you said, I think it's more genuine when they know it's coming from the actual crews. It's not coming from some person in an office that has no clue how we do our job or what we're doing. To me, that's very, disingenuous, you know, to have somebody that's not a part of the unit, you know, posting stuff and you know, I think it comes across more genuine when it's actually the folks that, you know, are doing the job that are, you know, interacting with you, because really, unless we go to a public event, you know, an air show or something, we don't have that interaction with the public that, you know, even a street cop has, you know, because we're just not out there that often. So
it's the pictures
it was a really
as well.
unique way for, they just showing people views of the city. Or of their city. I mean, there's a lot of people that have never had the chance to go up in a helicopter and see their own, you know, city. And so
that's so true.
You know, showing them, you know, a view of their city from the air. I didn't, you know, we take it for granted, right? That's what we do every day. And I would post some pretty sunset picture of the city and saw the reaction that people had to, oh my gosh, like I've never seen our city that way. And, you know, so you realize that, you know, we're taking it for granted, and now we can share that with, you know, the people that are following the account. And I'll be honest, those are probably some of the most popular posts, because people just thought it was a really unique view. And that was, I think, nice to be able to share, you know, with the community. Because at the end of the day, like you said, we're working for the community, we're working for our officers on the ground, and we can never lose sight of that, because that's who we're serving. And so we're blessed to be able to be in that seat and have that view, and to share it with others, I think is, you know, really a cool way to interact with the community.
Yeah. You said something a minute ago, and I just want to touch on it real quick. You know, these missing person calls that we go and assist patrol with, you know, us in our agency, we'll do PA announcements, you know, out of the helicopter, telling the community, you know, who we're looking for, what they look like, and who to call if they find them. But oftentimes we find on the internet, people are like, what is a helicopter saying? I can only understand every third word, you know, like, and we've got good equipment, so it's not like it's low budget stuff. So I think when you have an account like what you guys are describing, a Twitter account or social media account, where you can broadcast on those accounts, you know, the exact description of who it is you're looking for, it's so helpful, you know, because again, people just don't know what it is we're saying half the time, unfortunately. So